So in the time that you've spent doing that as a mentor in the fitness business, what has been the biggest surprise that you've encountered when working with up and coming or new owners?
I think the biggest surprise, I think the biggest realization is that the business isn't going to outgrow you, the owner. So I think a lot of us, if we don't constantly improve ourselves and if we don't work on either our areas of our deficits or we don't hire the right people to make up for those deficits, the business is really never going to grow past that. If that makes sense. That to me has probably been the biggest realization I've had in working with other gym owners. If you're just not willing, or if you're not willing to fix your business model, then that business is going to be what it is. You can put all the band-aids on it that you want, but it's not gonna grow past that. If you're not willing to learn how to market your business, and if you associate sales with being negative, then your business is never going to grow past what it's currently doing, because it's just not going to be ready to take that next step. So I think the self-awareness is huge in what we do. If you're not self-aware or in tune to what you do really well and what you're weak at, I'm not saying you have to go and fix all your weaknesses, but it may be hiring the right people that make up for where you're at, right? And if you don't have that realization, that awareness, it's going to really limit your ability to grow as a business. And also, one of our mastermind group is about more than just the business side. It's about getting your shit together first, because if you don't have your shit together, your business is going to be reflectant of that.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Be Live broadcast of Masters in Fitness Business podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today, coming straight from New Jersey, I have Joe Meglio, a return guest. I had Joe on the show. I interviewed you down in the ATL at the STS conference down there. And now he is back on the show, and we're going to be talking about the principles of running a high profitable gym. Because as everybody knows that runs a gym, you can be making money hand over fist, but if you're not keeping it, you're not making any money. If you're not making any profit, it's just all going out the door in expenses, which is easy to do. So that's what Joe is going to be talking about with us today. And Joe Meglio runs Game Changer Strength and Performance in New Jersey. They started out as a baseball sports specific gym, and now they just do general pop. They do large group, small group. Do you guys do one-on-one too, Joe?
Not a whole lot of one-on-one.
Okay.
We still do train athletes, but it's a much smaller percentage of our business now.
Yeah, but most of yours is general fitness, right? And you do large group, small group, and he runs a great business. He's got a great organization over there, and he's really profitable. He's a young guy. How old are you, Joe?
29.
29. And crushing it up in New Jersey, and him and his wife are now expecting their first child in September. So Joe's got big things happening in New Jersey. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. The one thing I've always been impressed with you is that how you always have your shit together. You're well-spoken, organized, and very business-like. So I'm not surprised that your gym is very successful up there, and now you're part of this mastermind. You've moved up and involved in this mastermind, where before you said you started out as an employee, and then a member, and now you just recently partnered with the founder of the group, and you guys run this mastermind together, helping young guys just starting out in the business turn their gyms into profit centers for themselves, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to share with the listeners a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so I started out in that group when I was an employee working for somebody else, and I think I've been in business 6 years in May, and what has helped me get to where I am as quickly as I have has been being around that support group of people that have the same issues as you know, right? Because we're in a mastermind together now. But being around other people who are going through the same issues, and because it's weird, man. The entrepreneurial life is not like other people don't get it unless you are in it. You just don't get it. So being around people who have had those problems, who solved those problems, definitely helped me. So in that group, I started out, as an employee, moved to gym owner. And then I got a lot of help, surrounding myself with the right people. Eventually got to the point where I moved up as a coach, and I was helping the other gym owners in the group. And yeah, last April, it became official. I became partners with my partner now, Paul Reddick, who started that group. He was a mentor of mine starting out as a gym owner, and I definitely wouldn't be here without him and that group and the influence that they've had on me. So it's awesome to be able to be a partner now and help other gym owners, with the same help that I got. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's a great evolution. I mean, going from employee to gym owner and now mentoring other people and helping run the mastermind group. So kudos to you again. I'm not surprised by it at all. But for those of you guys that are listening, watching on Facebook Live or watching this video on YouTube, Joe's in the office at his club, Game Changer Strength and Performance, and I'm in the office at my club, Catalyst Strength and Functional Nutrition. So we're just a couple of gym owners, and we're talking about the gym business. So today, Joe is going to take us through some of those principles of running a high profitable gym. So Joe, let's jump right in.
Sure.
We talked a little bit before we started recording. You wanted to cover like the business model and structure. You want to unpack that a little bit for the listeners?
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I'll tell you what, that's like the biggest mistake that I see with a lot of gym owners when they get themselves in a situation where they set their gym up with a foundation that is already cracked, right? And if you don't have a solid foundation, when you go to scale that or when you go to increase business, it doesn't matter because you don't have the fundamentals in place. You're gonna bleed money out of the back, right? So having the foundation and the structure is critical. And let me say, starting out, I didn't, all I knew is I wanted to train people, right? And I had a 600 square foot room where we trained, athletes. That turned into training adults. And there was not a whole lot of thought behind what we did. So if you're someone who, never really thought about that, I think that's okay. We've certainly evolved over the years, and I'll share with you some of the different models that we've learned that do work and what we do at Game Changer. But yeah, that's really it. So when I started out, I had no idea what the model was other than I wanted to train people. And so what happened though, after we started in 600 square feet, we were there for about 2 years, or maybe a little bit over 2 years. And we were getting to the point where we couldn't fit any more people. As you can imagine, 600 square feet is a pretty small facility. Mm-hmm. We were able to train anywhere from 6 to 10 people at a time, depending on if it was adults or athletes and whatever. So we expanded into our current facility, which is 6,500 square feet. And that's where I got a little bit more strategic about what we were doing with our model. And I'll give credit here to Thomas Plummer and Rick Meglio. Those are the people that I learned this from. They were the first ones who made me think about, okay, there's actually a rhyme and a reason behind, your pricing structure and how you organize your training and all of that. So that was who opened my eyes to that. And what we did at the time, what happened is when we made that transition from 600 to 6,000 square feet, we went from training 8 adults at a time with one coach to training 12 to training 16, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And what I saw was that we were losing who we were at our core. People loved us because it was a small group environment, all the personalization that went into the workout. But as that grew, we were losing that, as you'd imagine. As you know, you go from training, 6 people to 10 people to 16 people. It's hard to serve more people the same way. So that's where, as I mentioned, learned from Tom and Rick about this idea of small group training. And I took that and I said, I love that because first, we were going to charge more money for it, right? Because it's designed where it's to be like personal training, but because you're doing it with other people, it brings the cost down for the members, but it's more profitable for us. So I love that. I love the idea that it would keep who we were when we started out, right? In this small group environment where it was you and a few people working out. And I thought we could deliver a better experience for the members ultimately because of the personalization that could go into it. So I took that idea of small group training or semi-private training, as some people call it, and I made it our own. We started 6 to 1, 6 members to 1 coach. That's what I was able to wrap my head around at the time, is with all the logistics that went into staffing and scheduling and everything else. That's what we felt was manageable, where we could deliver a good experience, a great experience, charge more money for it. and hang our hat on. So to me, that is how we kind of evolved that game changer. We started out as just a mishmash of, okay, we're going to train 8 people in a room. That doubled, and then we were like, you know what, we have to get back to what we are best at, and that was that small group personal training where you have regressions, progressions, lateralizations, and you're able to really service every single person in that session. So that was a big step for us in my business when we moved into a new facility. We made that switch, and at the same time, we then took our what we were doing for our metabolic workouts and just made that team training, a larger group model. So we went from having one model to now having 2 different programs at our facility with 2 different price points as well. So that was our evolution, and within that, there's a couple lessons there. Small group training, semi-private, is a model that absolutely works, and team training or large group training is a model that absolutely works as well. So those are 2 good examples of proven models that you can implement in your business, especially if you're just starting out, identifying what you're going to be the best in your area at and going for it.
So there's a lot to unpack there, but you said you felt like you were, when the groups were getting so big, that you felt like you were losing your identity, and that you wanted to get back to that kind of smaller, more intimate feel, and that's why you integrated the small group training. And I think there's an important lesson in there in do what you're good at, right? So you guys were good at the small group, so you wanted to get back to that, which is the reason you chose to focus in on that. And then you were also good at the large group, and people wanted that. So you wanted to provide that that experience for your members. So you were able to break it out into small group and large group. And I know before we started recording, you said something which I see a lot, and I've never heard a name put to it until you put this name to it: black hole pricing. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is very common. And because most gym owners are honestly like how I was when I started out, where you just want to get, people in the door and you just want to train people. And there's no real rhyme or reason behind your pricing. You look down the street and see what everyone else is charging, right? But the issue with that is a lot of times you get yourselves into a model that doesn't really work initially. And if you don't fix it, what's going to happen is you get into that black hole pricing, meaning no matter how many members you have, you're never going to be able to be profitable because of the way that your business is set up. Example, let's say that you offer small group training. You're training a handful of members at a time with one coach, but you're charging large group training rates. That is an example of black hole pricing, where no matter what you do, unless you change your structure, unless you change your prices, you can get 100 new members overnight. It's not going to matter. You're going to always bleed because of how you're set up. So that to me is what black hole pricing is.
So what do you do to combat that? Do you reverse engineer your pricing? Meaning you figure out what your cost is, and then you build in your margin, and then that's your price?
Yeah. So what I thought about was, okay, how many coaches am I going to have on the floor? Right. Or let's like at my current gym, we run up to 4 small group training sessions at the same time. We have our gym set up like 4 different quadrants, and a small group can go in each one. So what can that space accommodate? If I have 6 people, and let's say on average they're paying $25 a workout, right? So the max amount of capacity that quadrant has is $150 for that session. What am I willing to pay out for that? Would be $25, let's say, to a coach, right? So my margin on that is 75%. I'm paying out 25. I have an upside of 150. In actuality, though, you're not always going to be at capacity. So, you may pay out 25 and you may only make 100. That would be 75%, right? So those are the things that I thought about, right? And what the problem people get into is, okay, you have, let's say you train 5 people and they're each paying on average $10 or $15 for that session on average, and you're paying out 20. Your margin on that is terrible. That is like an example of what like black hole pricing is. And that's exactly how we figure out what is it going to cost to service that session, and what is the capacity that session can make when you figure, and that's an easy math equation to do, right? I know like fitness guys, we like, the numbers we know are like a bench press or squat or deadlift, but this isn't overly complicated to figure out from a pricing structure,
right,
where you should be. And there's some proven models out there, like if you are in the large group team training space, there's so many franchises that have done that calculation and figured out, okay, we're going to be, depending on how many people you get into the room, you're going to be between like 99 and 199, right? Depending on your area, amount of people, there's different factors in that, but you're going to be in that ballpark, right? And so that's how I figured it out. That's anytime I'm working with the gym owner, those are the things I'm looking for sure.
Gotcha. And then I think that's a key point, because I think, like you said, a lot of people look around as like, what is my competition doing?
Yeah.
What are they charging? And then when you start competing on price, it's a race to the bottom, because like you said, you can be getting new members in the door, but you're operating at a loss because it's costing you more to provide those services for your clients than your clients are paying you. And it's not a sustainable model. So it's a good thing, like I said before, focus on what you're good at and be the best at that, and charge a premium for that. Charge a premium and make sure you create that experience where it creates value for your clients, so they're willing to pay that. I think that's a great model as far as black hole pricing. And then you also mentioned something about make sure that your training system is scalable, which I think is so important as it goes from an owner operator to employee. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is a lot, especially if you're a gym owner, you're obviously very passionate about health and fitness, and you're learning, you're going to seminars, you're educating yourself, which is awesome, right? We all have to be doing that. But if you alone are the training system, meaning that you have a special skill set that isn't easily transferable to someone else, and your training system is based around that skill set that only you possess and can't be easily, passed on to someone else, that's going to cause a problem. And I see this a lot with gym owners, and here's where it manifests itself. You hire a coach, you step out so you can work on the business, right? And they step in, and your members don't like working with them, or your system is so complicated that they just can't they're not doing a good job, right? And maybe it could either be because you didn't train them well, or because your system is so complicated that they just can't learn it. And
there's no system at all.
Exactly. The system is you, right? It's
right.
Your eyes out there, knowing what to do, right? So having a training system that is scalable is really important. And that, what I mean by that is you have to be able to easily teach that to someone else, where they can learn it and they can implement it. That to me is something that is sustainable and that you can scale, because what's going to work with 50 members is not going to work with 150 or 300 members. You have to have a system in place that's going to allow you to grow. And that doesn't mean if you're just starting out, or if you have 50 members, that you have to figure that out today. But you have to understand that if you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to evolve your training system, and it can't start and stop with just your expertise only. So that's what I mean by that. And what's also important, and this is, I think this is what we've done a pretty good job at, is developing that system. Everyone we hire has zero experience before they start with us. They are personable, friendly. They have the right, what we believe to be the right values, core values, and the right attitude and personality to do the job, but they have no prior skill set. So if we had such a complicated training system, there's no way that we would be able to expect them to do a great job delivering our service if it wasn't scalable.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's a lot to unpack in that, because most trainers, when they start out, the system is them.
Yeah.
They are on the floor and they kind of know, they have their experience. They know the clients, and they know what to do, what not to do, when to do it, all those things. But even if they had somebody follow them around, a lot of times, I know for me, when I'm doing a training session, I do a lot of the same things. I have a sequence in my mind, even though it's not written down what it is now. But at first it wasn't written down, but I just had this sequence that I would go through in my mind with each client, and that would decide like the next step. Doing the check-in, how you feeling today? Okay, then let's push it. Let's not push it. Let's back it off. So I had this system in my mind. It just wasn't written down. So I had to write it down, or have somebody follow me around and write it down. Because if you have somebody follow you around in the training system, chances are you do a lot of the same things with each and every client, and that's your system. So that's the beginning of your system. And then once you write that down and you have that in writing and like a manual, then you can teach it to other trainers. And here's where most business owner operators, trainers fall off the wagon, is that they say, They give it to their new trainer and they say, here's my system. Here's my gold. Here's my goose that lays the golden egg. Do it. And of course they go out and do it. And the first time they do it, guess what? They do a shitty fucking job,
Absolutely.
you know, and you're like, oh, this sucks. They sucks. It's not going to be the same. My business is going to, well, then that's where you have to become an owner, an entrepreneur, and start to manage those people and train those people so that they can do it right. So you don't have to jump back in and be the system again. You train them. And that's where I think a lot of owner operators kind of miss the boat, is in that managing and training transition of handing off their clients and their business to their employees. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where if you're handing them something that is, you know, like a different language to interpret, or it's just so hard to replicate. Again, if you're trying to replicate you, that's not going to be possible. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. So having that training system developed is really important, and keeping it simple. Some of the people that we've used a lot over the years for that is obviously Mike Boyle does a great job of keeping things so simple to understand. That's been huge for us and helping me make that realization that, you know, and plus the people that, I don't know about you, but the people that we work with, they don't need the most complicated training, right? Our average client is a 45-year-old mom who's just getting started with fitness or is just getting back into it, right? Mm-hmm. How complicated of a system do you need to train that person effectively? Right. So that's also important. I think, you know, when you're in it so much like we are, right, we're the passionate, we're attending, we're learning all these cool new ideas and everything, we tend to overcomplicate it ourselves, right? Where I think the more experience you get as a coach, you realize the simpler, the better, right? And just because it looks more advanced or because it's more complicated doesn't mean it's better. And I think that's something that a lot of young trainers tend to do, is they tend to jump on what they just learned, what's hot, which is great. But you know, when you try to grow a business doing that, it's not going to work for you. So
yeah, a lot of young trainers, they get all these tools in their toolbox, they shiny new tools, and they want to use them all, you know, when you may not need them all. And like you said, simpler is better. And I agree with you, like hiring somebody based on personality and principle, and they're a clean slate. So that means you can mold them and train them the way that you want them to train and the trainer that you want them to be, versus breaking any bad habits, which I think is much harder than instilling new habits on a clean board, clean dry erase board that you can kind of draw whatever you want on there. So with that in mind, let's talk about hiring. I know you talked about, we talked a little bit before we recorded about a hiring system, who to hire, when to hire, how to hire. Lay it on us, Joe.
Yeah, let's unpack that. So
okay.
Couple things here. First, I would say, you know, who to hire is always a very common question. You're in your business, you're in the day-to-day grind, you're hitting the ceiling, right? You're training, you're doing the admin work, you have a million different things going on. Most of these things you never even think. I know when I was going to this, I never even thought about you know, doing all the things that you end up doing, right? You just think it's gonna be, oh great, I'm gonna train people, and that's it. Right?
Yeah, you're training, you're writing programs, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the admin, you're doing the books, you're doing the billing. Like, yeah,
it's a never-ending list, right? But you never think about that. So what I you know, recommend now, and this isn't necessarily the advice that I followed, but this is what I generally recommend now, is focus on, you know, who to hire. There's a great exercise I like to do. I got this from a book called Traction. There's a series of books. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, by Gino Wickman. But one of the concepts he talks about is this idea of a delegate and elevate exercise. So if you're watching this, what I want you to do is get out a clean piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of the page, cutting it in half, you know, vertically, and then another line cutting it in half horizontally. So you have 4 equal quadrants. And in the top left quadrant, you write love and great at. In the top right quadrant, you're going to write like and good at. In the bottom left, you're going to write you don't like it, but you're good at it. And the bottom right is you don't like it and you're not good at it. So when we talk about doing work on your business, this is an example of what we mean. So what you do now that you have this set up is you go through, you take an inventory of what's in your head, your responsibilities, everything that it is that, you know, you love to do and you're great at. they got to fit within one of those 4 quadrants. And what I would recommend to you is when you look to hire someone, you have to take what's in those bottom 2 quadrants, and that is who you're looking for, someone to take on those responsibilities, right? So you, like, a lot of times you're like, oh, I need to hire someone. What are they going to do? Well, you have to go through an exercise like that, because ultimately you hire someone to take stuff off your plate, right? So you can focus on what you're best at. So to me, that is the best exercise to figure out, okay, well, who do I have to hire and what are they going to do? And what you find, a lot of young gym owners, or, you know, any gym owner, is that you probably don't like doing the admin work. You probably don't like calling people back to schedule them in for their workout. You probably don't like going back and forth over email. You don't like scheduling. You don't like billing. You don't like data entry. Those are the things that you either you do them because you have to, or they just don't get done because you just don't have the capacity to do them. So to me, that, at least, you know, if I were to do that exercise, those are the things that I would write down, right? So that is the type, I'd be looking for an admin out of the gate who can do all that stuff, so I can focus on the things that I like it and I love and that I'm good and great at. So the first answer isn't always to find another coach. And maybe that's what I did if I look back, and I'll explain why that worked out in a second. But for most of us, what happens is you find a coach so you can coach less, but now you find yourself doing more of the things you hate doing, right? So
right.
That's why being strategic about it and knowing exactly, and everyone's different, right? Maybe you are like, you know, you love doing that admin work or whatever, and hiring another coach would help you a ton. But taking that inventory and making a decision based on strategy, I think, is really important. And then I'll kick back. I know I said that's not what I did, right? Starting out, first thing I did was I was hired a coach. I was very fortunate, and it was out of luck. It wasn't because I was great at hiring. It wasn't because of anything I did, right? I was very, very fortunate to find a great coach who's been with me now for 5 years, who's taken on a bigger role. He's currently the GM at our current facility right now. But that isn't always, when you go to hire a coach, that's not always the person you're going to find out of the gate. So for me, it worked out. I'll call it luck with that. But that's more of a unicorn. That's more of an outlier. That's not going to be the norm when you're first making a hire. So that's the exercise I like to do to answer the question, who and what are they going to do? And then the how is a totally different animal. Before we go into that, what are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think most young trainers, they think, okay, I want to grow the business, and the way to grow the business is to get more clients in here. And the only way I can do that, have more classes, have more small groups, the only way I can do that is to hire another coach. But then when you do that, that increases the admin, increases the marketing needs, the marketing costs, the admin costs, program design, client retention, all of those things. So it increases, it feeds the monster, right? So I think that's really common in that they hire a new coach. Where I've talked to several people, and one of my last hires was admin, was front desk help. And oh my God, when I hired front desk help and all of that got taken off my plates, like answering the phones when I'm training people, scheduling people, billing questions, client account questions, all of that admin work got taken off my plate, and I can say, talk to the people at the front desk and they can help you out. It was such a fucking load off. That should have been my first hire. And I agree with you. And I think that should be most people's first hire, because the reason the business is growing is because of you on the floor training your clients. So if that's what you love, then stick to that and have the admin done by somebody else. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's 100% correct. And again, that's not necessarily true for everyone, right, but I find that is generally true of most trainers that start their own business.
I agree, because what happens is if you don't do that, right, and whether that's, let's say let's stick with the example of it being an admin, ultimately you're just going to build a business that you hate. You built a business where you're doing none of the things that none of the reasons why you got into it is what you're currently doing. So yeah, that's the perfect exercise that I like to use for that. And yeah, so let's talk about the how now, right? How do you go about, or like how do you onboard someone, and how do you hire someone? So this is something that I've struggled with mightily over the last 6 years. We tried a lot of different approaches, And the realization I've had is that I'm not good enough at making decisions of hiring based off of just a couple interviews, right? And we've all heard hire slow, fire fast, right? Which is true. Even when we do that, right? We took someone through a hiring process that consisted of, they inquired online. We got on the phone with them for 10 or 15 minutes. We invited them in for an in-person interview. We invited them back to shadow and to watch a team meeting so the team can meet them and vet them. We got that person the next. So that was that was the fourth or interview. The fifth one, we got them out of the gym into like a recreational environment where we wanted to just see them like when they weren't like prepared so much. And even with all that, we still were not able to make a good decision. 2 weeks in, we were like, that was a bad decision, right? So what we do now is we hire through our internship program. It is the only way that we hire new coaches, because what that allows us, it allows us to see you in action. We get you on the floor. Our expectation of you in terms of providing value is zero. We don't expect that. But what we do expect is for you, you're going to show us certain actions. You're going to show us your attitude, your behavior. You're going to learn our training system. We're going to be able to vet you for our values, and we're going to see how well you can learn our training system. And that is what we look. That's how we hire now. We do a 30. We've experimented with different timeframes, but what I think a sweet spot is a 30-day, paid internship, if you will. Or unpaid internship, however, if you have a college credit or whatever, where you can vet them for values and to see how they interact with your members and if they have all the attributes you're looking for. And then if they do, we then move them into a 90-day apprenticeship program where they get, now it's okay, we think you're a good fit. Now you have to show us if you could add value to the program, right? If you can become that coach that we need you to be. So our hiring process has changed over the years, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But that is how it is now. We always are looking to pack our internship program with people who want to be a coach. And again, we don't expect them to have any prior knowledge or anything. We expect them to learn whatever it is that we teach them, and we expect them to come equipped with the right attitude, the right mindset, and the right attributes to acquire. And we'll give you the skills. So. But yeah, that is our how now is that. So yeah, the internship program for us is pretty important.
So tell me what that looks like. Where do you find interns?
Yeah.
What is the structure of your intern, the 30-day program? What does that look like? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So where we find them, we've had good success with local colleges. We're right in Jersey. So we get, interns from Rutgers, William Patterson, all different, Montclair State, all different universities have interns. And
so how did you reach out to those universities to let them know that you had an internship program and create that relationship to where they're sending people your way?
Yeah, initially it's always best if you can get it through an introduction, whether that's someone One of our introductions was made through a chiropractor that I know. And then some of them we just cold reached out to and said, hey, we own this fitness facility. We're looking for interns. So if nothing else, if you don't have somebody who can make an introduction for you, just reaching out and following through. So you can't send one email and they didn't get back to you and say, I tried, right? You have to, you go down to the school if you have to. Do what you have to do to get in front of that person, whether that's calling them, going down to the school, emailing them, and follow through, because people are busy. They're not going to always get back to you right away. So there's an art of follow-up involved there. So either get an introduction through someone you know, or you orchestrate that introduction yourself. Be intentional about getting that relationship with those schools, because it's not going to happen by chance. It's not going to happen by accident. So that's been a big avenue for us. Outside of that, obviously, the job sites out there, they're okay. We don't get it's honestly hit or miss. And if I'm thinking now about our current team and how they found us, how we got introduced to them, a lot of them found us just online. They were searching. So it was a little bit by luck, by chance, where they were searching and they found our website and it spoke to them and they reached out to us. One was through a referral of a colleague, which also is obviously great. If you can, that would be a great way. So that's how we initially got introduced to the colleges though. And but using the job sites, the colleges, and building those relationships over time and just trying to find ways to add value, go down and see if you can speak at a class or do something other than just asking for something. Be willing and able to go and provide value to the schools and show face and do things that there's a million other gyms out there who want interns too, and they're all sending the same email that you're sending. So what can you do to set yourself apart to be the person that they recommend?
And how do you structure that 30 days?
Yeah, so great question. We have an online onboarding system where we have it set up as different modules, and I'll just go through that briefly. So the way we structure is the first thing we teach people is our expectations of how to act, how to carry yourself, our core values, because that ultimately is what's most important to us. If you're a great coach or if you're really good technically, but you just don't possess the values that we live and the characteristics we're looking for, it's not gonna work out. You're gonna not be a good fit for the team, right? So the first thing we go over is not even training. That doesn't come till module 2 and 3. So the first thing we go over is all of our expectations of how to act, what to do, what not to do. Here's our values. Here's what we expect you to wear. Here's when we expect you to show up. We have here are the books we expect you to read. Here's our weekly meeting structure. And here's what we're going to do at those meetings. So we are just upfront and honest about, everything it is about the internship and what it is and what it isn't. And that's the key. And let me also say that it was not always this way, right? I've made every mistake in the book, and that's what's gotten us to this point where it's so dialed in now, right? And it seems like this, such a great system, but it wasn't always that way. And even now, we still, of course, have challenges, and it's not perfect. So I don't want to give off that thought that it is. But yeah, that's how that works. And the weekly meeting, the initial meeting, the weekly meetings, and the online curriculum to match that is really important. And here's something really important that I do now whenever we're interviewing people is I give, what we call like the speech. And I basically I go through our 5 core values and I tell them what it is. And I give examples of what it's not. And if you're like, I'll just give you an example, right? So one of our core values is to be humble. So if you're the type of person,
if you could, Joe, walk us through all 5. I'm interested to know what all 5 are.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So the first one, I'll go through all 5 of them. I'll give you an example of like what the speech would be that I would give to somebody that we were looking to hire. Okay. So the first value is to be all in. That means that you're committed to your career. We're open and honest with each other. You're the first one here. You're the last one to leave. You're just all in on the business. So example, if you're the type of person who's not willing to be the first one here and you're the first one out the door and you're not willing to step up when a teammate is down, you're not going to be a good fit here. Our next value is to be a pro. That means that, we're always respectful to others. We operate on Lombardi time, and you look the part, and you act the part, right? It's the words you use, it's how you dress, it's how you carry yourself. So you got to be a pro. So if you're the type of person who, life happens to you and, you're late, you show up late, or, there's all these external factors that cause you to not be on time or not that happen to you, then you're not going to be a good fit for us. Genuine care for members.
Hold on, I want to back up. What is Lombardi time?
Oh, Lombardi.
Never heard that before.
Oh, okay. So if you're on time, you're late. So you show up 15 minutes early. That's okay. Lombardi time. So if you're on time, you're late. Okay. All right. That's a good question. Genuine care for members. So what that means is we have sincere interactions with our members. You're personable, positive. You have empathy for them. You understand where they're coming from, and you treat members like family. It's the best way to put it. So if you're the type of person who's just going to, not really care about the people that you're working with, and if you're not here to make a difference and change lives, then this isn't going to be a good fit. Get better. There's 2 more. Get better every day. Growth mindset. So you're here to learn. So what books are you reading? What podcasts you're listening to? If you're not the type of person who is doing that stuff, you're not going to fit in here. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's what we firmly believe in. And last but not least, be humble. Team first. You do what's in the best interest of your team. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about, it's about the members we serve. It's about the team. So if you're the type of person, this is my personal favorite one. If you're the type of person who's taking, selfies on Instagram 24/7, you're not going to be a good fit here. So that is what we call like the speech. It ties our 5 values into what they are and examples of what they're not. So when we're interviewing people, we're meeting people, and we go through those, and they're the type of people who show up late, and they have a million Instagram pictures of themselves, and they dabble in different careers, and they're not committed. We're going to weed them out. We tell them straight up, like, you're not going to be a good fit here if you don't share these values with us. You're going to be miserable. So only proceed if you feel like you're a good fit.
Gotcha. I love that. I love those 5 values and the speech and the examples of what is and what isn't that
Yes.
Core value. That's really well thought out. Great job on that, Joe. So you mentioned that with the 30-day internship program, there's 5 modules. Can you take us real quick through the other 4?
Yeah, there's 3. So we have, everything is like about what it means to be a game changer, right? The values, how to act. The first book we make people read when they join our team is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because again, we've all heard, right? Nobody knows how much you care, knows how much you know until they know how much you care. So we believe that. We have everyone read that book first. So the first module is all about that. It's about our philosophy. It also includes about the programs we offer, small group training, team training, how things work. The second module is about the system, right? Regressions, progressions, programming. It's about the scalable training system that we spoke about before, how to cue certain things. It's everything there is about the game changer training system. And there's different subcategories under that. So that we go there because then the next module is the art of coaching, right? How to be agile on the floor, how to give like the best customer or member experience possible. Just that subtle art of coaching that's so important, right? The reason we go in that order though is because if you're not committed to our values and you don't live them, you're not going to be a good fit. So let's get that out. Let's be upfront and honest about that out of the gate. From there, once you're personable, positive, friendly, people like you, then you can start to work with them. Now you need to go and implement our training system. You're not going to go and teach someone how to squat the way you think they should squat. You're going to teach them the way that we teach you. So we teach the training system. And then because to go from, you don't need a whole lot of prior knowledge to learn our training system. Again, because it's simple, it's easy to implement, easy to understand, and it's scalable. And then once you can implement our training system, now it's about the finer details of coaching. It's really about knowing how to work with the group, moving from person to person, and not overdoing it or underdoing it. All that type of stuff is really important. The art of coaching. So that's why we have it layered in that order.
Nice. And then once they get through the 30 days, what does the 90-day program look like?
So then 30 days, we take them through the training, those modules. And we're vetting them for our 5 values that I mentioned to you. And if we think they have the potential and capacity to become a good coach, right? At the end of 30 days, if they're not a great coach, that doesn't matter. What that 90 days is all about, okay, wherever you are now, we're going to get you, CFSC certified, and we're going to get you FMS certified. We're going to pay for that. You're going to be a paid coach here. We expect you to bring some value now. We expect you to take what you've learned and put it into action, because it doesn't happen overnight, right? And they have to be a serviceable coach by the end of the 90 days. That's not the expectation at the end of the 30.
Got it. Beautiful, beautiful. So that is your hiring system.
Yes.
And that is, and I think that's really important, because I think that's where a lot of people fall off. Is that onboarding system, not only with staff, but with clients as well. They don't train the clients how to be a good client. And I think that's so important. That's where the onboarding system comes into play. And same thing with your employees. I went to a great seminar. It said, were they dead when you hired them, or did you kill them? Meaning, did you hire a deadbeat in the first place, or did you hire somebody who was a rock star and then not give them what they needed to succeed and be the rock star they could be? So, and a lot of that is the onboarding, the training, and the managing of them. So that's so important. So thanks for going into such detail with that.
Yeah, a couple things I want to add to that too. We don't how do you motivate your employees? You shouldn't have to motivate your employees. You should hire motivated employees. And I don't remember who said that. I know I've heard Dave Ramsey say that. Lee Cockrell, someone I followed, he used to be the executive VP of operations at Disney World. So one of them said that, and I'll give them credit for that. I didn't come up with it. But that's also important. If you are constantly, pulling teeth because you feel like you have to motivate your employees, it may not be the right fit, because again, batteries need to come included. I can't, we can't babysit you. We're gonna show you exactly what our expectations are. We're gonna tell them to you. We're gonna let you know when you're doing well, when you're not doing well. But like as an owner, the best thing you can do is provide clear expectations and clarity to your employees. If you have the right people who are motivated, they'll get the job done. If you feel like you have to constantly motivate your people, then that is probably, you probably have the wrong people on your team. But providing clarity and expectations is of the utmost importance. So I did want to throw that into that as well.
Yeah, all great points. And I couldn't agree with you more. Once you know that they're not a good fit, you need to get rid of them ASAP. I ask people all the time, when did you know that they were a bad hire? And they say usually within a week or two.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, well, when did you get rid of them? They say, a couple of years later. So they were, on board and we're working with them. Maybe they'll change. Meanwhile, you're like going to sleep, worried about them. You're coming into work, thinking about, well, are they going to fuck this up? They take up a tremendous amount of your mental space. That's when they're a bad hire and you need to get rid of them.
There's like a 3-step process to firing people. It's step one is like you justify having them on the team, right? You're like, oh, well, maybe they'll fix this, or maybe this, you justify it, right? Oh, but they do this really well, right? Or they really care, blah, blah, blah. Then you can't stop thinking about how much you despise them or some of the things that they do, and you're just constantly frustrated and you do nothing but complain about them, and then you fire them. Generally,
absolutely. And then you always say, why didn't I do that a long time ago?
Yeah, it generally happens over the course of like 2 to 3 years.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to the next bullet point that we talked about before we started recording, because I think it's important. Is we talked about everything else, and now let's talk about keeping score.
Yes.
And knowing that your business is doing what you want it to do, that it's working for you, not the other way around, and that it's making money. So let's talk about the scoreboard, KPIs, and what I call the dashboard. Like, how do you keep the check engine light from coming on your business?
Yeah, and this is really important, because when you're in the daily grind, and I get it, I've been there, and I meant to say about like the hiring too. I made so many mistakes throughout that process. I made so many mistakes through the onboarding process of being frustrated with people because they weren't, doing what I wanted them to. But ultimately, that was all my fault. I didn't do a good job of that. So with all that said, you don't know what what success looks like. You're always going to feel burnt out, stressed out, and maxed out because you don't know what success looks like. You see no end in sight. You're just going to move forward. You're going to keep things going, and you don't know what's going on. And that's why they keep score in sports, so you know who's winning the game. You know what winning looks like, right? And you know winning or losing. So keeping score is critical. And there's a couple different ways to do that. Obviously, there's like KPIs, right? Which for every business is going to be different. So what I'm going to say now doesn't apply to every single fitness business. It's going to be some variation of it.
For those people out there that don't know what KPI stands for, which I didn't when I first got into business, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, key performance indicators, and basically it's your metrics. So if you think of like baseball, right, they're going to look at your, the old school stats were like batting average, RBIs, home runs. Those are like the metrics that they look at, right? So for your business, that's what you have to figure out. For most of our businesses, it's going to be some version of how many leads did you get this week or this month? How many trials did you get this week or this month? How many new members did you get up from those trials this week or this month? And how many members did you retain this month, right? Those are like the 4 key metrics, and every business can be a little bit different, right? But it's going to be some variation of that. It's going to be reflectant of your marketing and your sales process, right? What are the checkpoints along the way in that process? Because that's if you see that you do a really good job of getting let's say trials signed up, but you're not getting enough leads in the door. Now you know what you need to go fix, right? So the scoreboard is important because it tells you what's working and what's not working and what needs your attention, right? So you need to think about your sales. You got to think about a business as a whole. Let me take a step back. There's sales, there's marketing first, then there's sales, and there's the operations, and then there's like the finance, right? That's most business, fitness, any business doesn't not limited to fitness. So your KPIs need to be reflected of those processes, and you need to be able to look at each one and see what's working, what's not working, and what needs your attention. So let's give some examples. Let's bring this down to earth. So in marketing process, the question would be like, okay, well, how many leads are you getting, right? If you're getting a lot of leads, right, and they're not converting, then you look at the next process, which would be sales, right? And you know you need to fix something there. Let's say you get a lot of leads, you convert them well, but then they join for a couple months and then they leave, right? That would be an operations issue. Maybe there's something off with the experience. Maybe there's something off with the coaching or whatever, right? That would be a retention issue. So that is it. You have to look at the major functions of your business, and you need to know how you're going to keep score in those major functions. That's probably the easiest way to put it.
Great idea. So how do you hold the appropriate people accountable to those KPIs?
Well, in starting out, I mean, for the first couple of years of my business, I was accountable for every single one of them, right? Wearing so many different hats.
Well, that's the ultimate accountability. Can I pay my rent? Can I put food on the table?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that is it. I would say first, in order to keep someone accountable, you have to know what the goal is. Right. So it's more than just asking, well, how many leads did I get? You have to know what that lead number, you have to know what the goals are. Right. That's important. So like if you bat 300 as a Major League Baseball player over 15 years, you're a Hall of Famer. Right. So you have to know what success looks like in each of those departments. So I think that's step one. And then once the goals are clear, making sure, ultimately for most of it, it's probably holding yourself accountable, right? But if you're lucky enough to get to the point where someone else is accountable, reviewing those goals on a weekly or monthly basis is really important, because it's pretty black and white. You're either doing it, you either did it or you didn't do it. And those things need to be addressed either way. And I think it's important too from a strategy standpoint, right? If you ran a really good successful marketing campaign and it helped you hit your goals, maybe you should run it again, or maybe you'll run it again the same time next year. So it's from a strategy standpoint, it's going to help as well. So not maybe a great answer to your question, but you have to review it weekly, you have to review it monthly, and it has to lead to some actions, right? You don't just look at the scoreboard and don't change anything, right? Maybe if everything's going great and you're on track with everything, okay, great. But if you're falling short in certain areas, which that we do certainly, things need to be addressed. It's going to set the tone for the things that need to change in your business, and some decisions that may be made in your business as well.
Excellent. And then, and that's so key, but you have to be consistent. You have to have a system. You have to be consistent. Yeah. Consistently bring it up and hold those people accountable to
one of the things I want to add to that is starting out, especially if you're the one this is one thing I mentioned before, where like certain things just don't get done in your business. This is one of the things that will not get done in your business until you hire someone else to do it, is to do that data entry, to keep score, to keep track of how many leads you're getting, of what's happening to those leads, tracking the sales process along the way, tracking how many lost members you have. I know for me anyway, until that got done by somebody else, that was not done consistently on my part, very inconsistent. So that's one of the core things that you will probably get off your plate. You should get off your plate first when you're looking to hire someone.
Yeah, going back to that admin hire right off the bat, so important.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something I think is really important. You brought it up, the disconnect between what we think is our members' experience, our client experience, from an owner standpoint, from a trainer standpoint, versus what our actual client's experience is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the other key points of having a high profit gym, is you have to really focus on the member experience. I definitely, I wholeheartedly believe that. And what we mean by that is, you get into this business because we're passionate about something. Maybe it's a certain area of fitness, whether that's powerlifting, bodybuilding, sport performance, or kettlebells, or whatever. And because we love it and we think that it's awesome, we assume that everyone else thinks it's awesome and going to be great. But what a lot of, because we have blinders on, what we fail to realize is that a lot of people could be intimidated by that. They don't really understand the benefits of that. And at the end of the day, they don't really care about that. What they do care about is feeling better, having more energy, at least the people we serve, right? They care about feeling better, having more energy, running around with their kids. That's really what's important to them. And, you know, at our gym, we don't even, we do things a little bit differently here. We don't even put people on a scale on day one. I don't remember if I said that in our first podcast, but most of the people we work with are petrified of the scale, and they don't want to step foot onto it. So we really work hard on trying to imagine, and we really work hard on imagining what the experience is like for the person who's never been to a gym like ours before, and they see turf and they see racks and they think CrossFit, you know, and that's not what we are, right? Mm-hmm. So really getting your head in the mind of your consumer is really important, because until they experience it, they think it's like everything else out there. They have no reason to otherwise think that you're any different, right? So that member experience is really important, you know. So that to me is critical. So some of the things that we focus on at Game Changer is we want everyone to be comfortable when they walk in. We want everyone's going to know your name, right? It's going to be like Cheers when you come in. Everyone's going to know your name. They're going to be friendly. That's really important, you know. So the member experience is really important. If you try to force people into what you believe is the best way of training, or that's just, you're gonna have a hard time building a business that really matters or that has an impact, because people are going to be more scared off by that than anything. And I'm not saying you shouldn't niche or anything like that, but you know, from a member experience, you have to think about what's going through the mind of your consumer. And if they're scared and intimidated, they're never going to get started with you. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of the franchises out there have done pretty well. You know, you look at like an Orange Theory or whatever. It doesn't appear to be like what most private gyms look like, which are dingy. They look like CrossFit boxes, and that's not a knock against that, but that's just what like our gyms appear to look like, even though they're not. So that they really focus on like what seems to me is the member experience. You know, and is their programming great? No, it's not. You know, is their coaching great? No, it's not the greatest. But they work so much on the other things that, you know, it still works, obviously.
Yeah, Orange Theory does, and most successful franchises, what they do is they do a great job of giving their clients a win each and every time they come in.
Yeah.
To where I feel like, oh yeah, I'm able to do more than I did last time. And so each time they walk out of there, they walk out with a win. And that's so important from an emotional standpoint, emotionally reinforcing what you get, the product that you get from that service. So I think that's so important. And what I want to know is, how do you determine that if there is a disconnect between what you think is your client experience versus what your clients see as their experience? So now I know there's some hard metrics, like KPIs, as far as like retention numbers, referral numbers. Those are all key indicators of what kind of culture you have. Yeah. If you have a good culture that you keep, 95% of your clients every month, and if you're getting a shit ton of referrals, clients are referring their friends, then chances are you've got something good going on. But how do you make sure that you don't have the disconnect? What are some of those signs?
Yeah, that of the member experience, there's a couple. If you're finding it hard that people aren't training with you, that could be one. Is like they're not even willing to engage in the member experience because of what the appearance is, what the optics are of your business, right? So you may not think it's hardcore, but the person who hasn't got started with you like won't step foot in your gym, right? So to me, that's one of the things out there. If you're having a hard time attracting new members with your market, it could be your marketing. It could be, a disconnect between your marketing and what actually is going on in your gym. I see that all the time as well. And then in your gym, if you're just forcing people into certain, boxes that maybe they don't want to be in, what's important to them is like what you said, right? They just want to win for the day, but you're telling them that you need to gain 10 pounds on your bench press or X, Y, or Z, or you need to progress from goblet squats to the bar, right? That's what we're focused on. But they don't care about that. They just care about feeling good, right? They care about having to win, going somewhere where they're not going to be yelled at, or they can get away from their kids for a little bit. They need that outlet, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Is if you need to get yourself, you need to think about what they're thinking about. right?
Mm-hmm.
Not what you think they should be thinking about. So I would say what's really helpful is to visit other clubs and see how other people are doing it. And you can see, and not clubs that are like yours, right? Because that is just going to affirm what you believe or what you think
Mm-hmm.
about, but really getting out there and seeing how other people are doing it. By no means do I think you should copy them or anything, but what it does, it gets you to think outside the box a little bit, and it may open you to things that you never thought about, right? And new ideas and new ways of adding to your experience that you provide. So I think getting outside of your club and seeing what else is going on within the industry is a good thing, not from a copying standpoint, but just from a perspective standpoint. I think that's important.
Yeah. I think that's so key, because what we do with our trainers, we do what we call secret shopper workouts, where we'll go to another club and we'll just kind of go in there all at once and just see what it's like, see what the experience is like, what their onboarding is like, what their follow-up is like, what their member experience is like, and basically see what they do well, see what they don't do well, see what we want to adopt and what we want to leave at the door. So I think that's a great point. It's kind of like when you get into business, like reading books, the self-improvement, finding mentors, finding a mastermind group, all of those things, it's about growth and development. And like you said, staying humble enough to know that you don't know everything. So Joe, thanks for coming on, man. This has been great. And I want to honor our time. So I want to wrap up with a couple of questions and then a couple of other things. So my first question is, you've been on the show before, so I'm not going to hit you with the same questions. Sure. I'm going to ask you instead, in this last month, so what is this, April 1st? So in March, the month of March, what has been your biggest failure? I mean, because you've been in business 6 years. What has been your biggest failure in the month of March that you've learned from?
Well, I mean, there's a ton. I don't know where you want to start with that, but we didn't hit our, really simply, we have our quarterly meeting for the first 3 months of the year scheduled for this Thursday. We did not hit our revenue goals for any of the first 3 months, right? Our retention needs to be addressed. So there's so many different things that, we need to work on. So I don't know, there's so many. I think the realization of, right now with my, my wife expecting in September, we're preparing for that. And, just the thought of finding someone for that, how are we going to get our goals for Q2, right? When we missed them for Q1, we missed our revenue goals. And if you look why, our athlete program is down 45% from where it was last year, right? And our sales and marketing has been solid. Our retention has been good. It's been trending in the right direction, but that needs to get better. So it's never ending. The things that, the problems you have, you're always going to have problems. It's just a matter of the problems the quality of the problems that you have, the actual problems are going to they're going to change, but you're always going to have some challenges for sure.
Yeah. I say it all the time. There's no momentum in business.
Yeah.
You always have to keep feeding that pig.
Exactly.
If you wanted to keep producing, there's no resting, there's no coasting. You always have to feed the machine. That's for sure, to keep that momentum going. Okay. My next question then is, I know you're really involved in this mastermind group, and you are mentoring other young owners in the business. You work with quite a few. So in the time that you've spent doing that as a mentor in the fitness business, what has been the biggest surprise that you've encountered when working with up and coming or new owners?
I think the biggest surprise, I think the biggest realization is that the business isn't going to outgrow you, the owner. So I think a lot of us, we don't constantly improve ourselves, and if we don't work on either our areas of our deficits, or we don't hire the right people to make up for those deficits, the business is really never going to grow past that. If that makes sense. That to me has probably been the biggest realization I've had in working with other gym owners. If you're just not willing, or if you're not willing to fix your business model, then that business is going to be what it is. You can put all the band-aids on it that you want, but it's not gonna grow past that. If you're not willing to learn how to market your business, and if you associate sales with being negative, then your business is never going to grow past what it's currently doing, because it's just not going to be ready to take that next step. So I think the self-awareness is huge in what we do. If you're not self-aware or in tune to what you do really well and what you're weak at, I'm not saying you have to go and fix all your weaknesses, but it may be hiring the right people that make up for where you're at, right? And if you don't have that realization, that awareness, it's going to really limit your ability to grow as a business. And also, one of our mastermind group is about more than just the business side. It's about getting your shit together first, because if you don't have your shit together, your business is going to be reflectant of that, right? And that's a realization. That's something that we see with a lot of gym owners too. You're trying to fix a marketing and sales problem or a training problem, but you have all this other shit going on that you never mentioned or want to talk about. And that's really what the limiting factor is going to be.
Yeah, I find that to be so true. I see so many owners, and I'm sure you have too, like fitness business owners who run a fitness business, and they're in terrible shape.
Yeah.
Because they're not a product, they're not a result of their own product. They're not using their own product, or they spend so much time in the business. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast because I think it's an issue. It definitely is an issue in business. You spend so much time and energy on your business that you get home, that you're wiped out, that you have nothing left to give your loved ones, your family, your clients, and your employees get the best of you, and your loved ones get the worst of you. And then that leads to issues at home. And if you got issues at home, then you're going to have issues at work. So I couldn't agree with you more in that, like you said, you have to be grounded, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to have your shit together. So with that said, what are the last 3 books you read, or the podcasts that you listen to, or where do you go to get your self-development?
Yeah, I'm a big reader. The last couple books I read was Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz, I believe is how you say his last name. He's a Jersey guy. He also wrote the Profit First book, which is a great book. Yep. So he's up to Clockwork. Decisive by Dan and Chip Heath.
What's it called?
Decisive. It's like the green book by Chip and Dan Heath. And their other book, Power of Moments, which is one of my favorite books. I love that book. Going back to the customer experience, it's a lot of the things that we emphasize. A lot of the conversations my coaches have are obviously about the training and, who's having what's going on, but just how we're orchestrating that experience for members that they're just never going to forget. So those 3 books are awesome. I mentioned Lee Cockrell before. His books, man, so going back to what I said before, like your business isn't going to outgrow you. When I got to my, I don't know, what is my 3rd year in business, up until that point, I put all my energy into learning sales and marketing. And I do believe that is and obviously we all know training going into the business, right? But then you realize you need to market your business, you need to sell your business. So that was like the next stage. And then I realized for me, like, okay, great, I'm doing well with this. But if I just continue to put all my eggs in the marketing and sales and training bucket, I'm going to have a lot of trainers who are just going to leave, and I'm not going to be able to really grow past this. So I knew I had to learn how to manage people, lead people. And I made so many mistakes in those areas where I got read into all Lee Cockrell's books, and that certainly helped me as well. So it's a constant evolution of like areas of focus, I guess, over the years, and knowing where you're starting out at and what you need to take you to the next level is important. But yeah, what we're doing now, those are the most recent books that I've read. Obviously recommend them all, but yeah, podcasts are big, and a big reader as well. I don't go on social media much. I don't have Facebook on my phone. I don't have Instagram on my phone, so I don't consume that for much, education or keeping up with what's going on.
Yeah, there's no education on either one of those. Just look at the Instagram trainers, giving the industry a bad name. But anyway, okay.
Exactly.
So quick question. So what did you get out of the book Clockwork?
One of the things I loved, you talked about, like there's different areas in your business where you're going to spend time. You're going to do doing, you're going to do deciding, you're going to do like strategy. What I took out of it was the deciding part of it, where a lot of times when you're delegating, but you're ultimately the one still making the decisions. And when you find yourself in that, you really haven't delegated. Delegating is like you are not involved in the decision making process. And for me, that was huge, because I'm at a point in my business where I don't coach on the floor, and I'm not really involved in the business anymore. But I'll get pulled back into it in like the marketing or whatever when I try to delegate something, but I don't give that person doesn't have the autonomy to make decisions over it. right? So to me, that was a big takeaway because it was perfect for me to hear that and understand that's something that I need to work on, is getting that person you trained better so that they can make decisions, and me giving, better expectations and clarity around that. So that was one of my biggest takeaways. But that was a good book. I actually listened to that. I don't do many audiobooks because they don't hold my attention unless the author is good. They're like engaging. He's engaging. So that was a great audiobook.
Okay, awesome. All great books, and those links will be in the show notes. So let's talk about this this conference that you have coming up that your mastermind group is putting on, and it's going to be your facility.
Yes.
It's called the high profit gym.
Yes.
Mastermind. So tell the listeners about that.
Yeah. So what it is, it's myself and my partner, Paul Reddick. We are taking 8 trainers in the room. That's it. And the reason why we're doing that, most conferences you go to, they're going to have 20, 30, 40 people, and it's just the guru talking at you, right? They're telling you what you should do. But then it's up to you to go and implement that on your own. So where this is different is we're only taking 8 gym owners because we want to work with you on your business. We're going to help. You're going to lead with the actual game plan of what to go back and implement versus we're just going to throw a bunch of information at you and you have to figure out what to do with it. So that's the biggest difference. So if you're someone who is a gym owner and you want a high profit gym, this is a great event. It's a 2-day intensive. I don't even want to call it a seminar. It's really like a workshop or intensive days where myself and my partner are going to work with you. We're going to work with you on all the principles that we talked about here and applying them to your business.
Like a business boot camp.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you haven't been to my facility, a lot of our mastermind members fly in. So it's not just people who are local. We're 20 minutes outside of Newark Airport. So it's close by, plenty of hotels and everything close by. So yeah, it'll be a good time. You're going to see my operation running, day to day. So you can kind of see what goes on. And again, I think it's always great to have a model. I know I had a model of what, when I started my business, I had people that I looked to help provide me the vision and the path. And so being able to see something, it gives you hope, it gives you inspiration, it helps shapes your vision. So you guys will see that also. Okay.
And give us the specifics on that. What are the dates? And it's at your gym. We know that, but what are the dates and what's the cost?
Yeah. So it's May 3rd and 4th. So it's Friday and Saturday. Both days are going to be 9 to 5. It's going to be at my facility here in New Jersey. And the cost of it right now, we have our early bird going on for $500, 8 trainers in the room. The normal cost on that is $1,000. This is the first one we're doing. So it's honestly, it's a lot of value. So we're going to raise the cost of that down the road. But since we're just getting this off the ground, we just want to be able to provide value and help some gym owners out there.
Okay. Awesome. It sounds like it's going to be really good, especially since it's like a business boot camp, a fitness business boot camp. I like that. So where can people go to find more information about you, get in touch with you, register for this conference, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So to learn more about the conference, go to 567academy.com. All the information is on there. If you want to reach out to me personally, I did this last time. I'm going to do it again. I'll give you my cell phone directly. Text me, call me. Doesn't matter. 917-498-5048. That's my cell phone number. If you want to get in touch, if you're interested in learning about the event, you want to talk about your situation, if you're not sure if you're a good fit for it or not, feel free to reach out. Happy to connect with you. You can also email me, joe@gamechangergym.com.
Okay. All right. And all of those links will be in the show notes. Just go to trainergym.net, click on this episode of the podcast and check out the show notes, and all the links will be to get in touch with Joe, find out about the conference, call Joe. You can sext Joe if you want. All that good stuff on his cell phone will be in the show notes. Joe, this has been great, man. It really has. I've enjoyed it. Yeah. So are you going out to Irvine next month?
I will. I'll be out there.
Or actually this month.
Yeah. What, week and a half from now. So yeah. I'll be out there. Looking forward to it.
Okay, good, man. Well, I look forward to catching up to you out there then.
Yes. I'll see you then. Thanks again for having me.
Awesome. No problem. Thanks, Joe. Have a good day, man.
You too.
All right.